Welcome to Fake Chats. I'm your host, Andrew Burnett, and today I am excited. I have a movie producer here with me, Alexandra Boylan. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Andrew. Thank you for having me.
I'm so excited. And I was sitting here this morning reading your biography. You and your sister started off being pastors' kids, but where did the love for movies really generate for you?
Yeah, well, from a very young age, I actually still remember seeing Back to the Future in the theater, and when it ended, I was like, whatever this is, I want to be a part of creating this feeling that you have when sit down in the movie theater and the lights go down and you escape into a world. So I really loved entertainment and films from a young age, and then I really got into acting, and I started acting in my high school theater department in my father's church. And then I grew up 20 minutes from Boston. So I started auditioning in Boston when I was like 14. And I just knew I loved it. Ever since I was a kid, it's all I ever wanted to do.
So I understand it all began for you as a movie producer with your movie Catching Faith that is on Netflix, and share with us a little bit about the background behind that story, if you would.
Oh, I'd love to. Thank you. Yeah, well, I actually started off as an actor and I spent many years pursuing acting in Los Angeles, about 10 years. And then I really believed that God called me into family friendly the faith space. And I got an opportunity to make a movie. And the only requirement was football. And I said to my executive producer, I said, at this time in 2011, I didn't see a lot of women being represented in leading roles in faith films. And I said, okay, I'll make it have football, but I want it to star a woman. And he said, oh, no, you can't do that because there's no numbers in the marketplace to back up a female driven faith based film. And I said, well, if you trust me, I believe there's a huge audience out there that would love to see themselves represented. And actually, the budget was so small for the movie that I had to make a choice. I would either keep my Los Angeles apartment or make the movie. So I trusted that it was what God wanted me to do. And I gave up my apartment. I put everything I owned in storage and I lived out of one suitcase for a full year to make Catching Faith a reality. And God has blessed that movie so much. We ended up shooting it in my sister's hometown in Chippewa Falls, Wisconsin, with a lot of community support because we didn't have a very big budget. And the movie has gone on to become the top 5 consistent selling movie for the distribution company, has been seen all over the world. It did Netflix, it's on the CW, Tubi, Amazon, everywhere. So that really paved the way for me to be able to make 5 more female led faith based films.
That is awesome. So you're here today to talk about one called The Greatest Inheritance. Share with us a little bit about it.
Yes. Okay. The Greatest Inheritance. We shot that whole movie in Columbus, Georgia. And it's about an estranged family that returns home to bury their mother, but really to get their inheritance. And when they get home, they find out that their deceased mother has buried the deed to the estate somewhere on the property and has left them clues and challenges that they have to do together as a family to find it. It stars Jaleel White, who played Urkel in Family Matters, Mina Suvari, Jeff Schroeder. It has an incredible all-star cast, and it's, God always lays things upon our heart of what we're supposed to make. And we made The Greatest Inheritance in the height of COVID in July of 2020. And that movie came out right after the pandemic, and we felt like, wow, God really wanted us to put out a message that the only thing that we inherit on earth is the kingdom of heaven. And if you have Jesus, you can't lose anything. And that's what the movie is all about. And it was such a great thing that this film has come out at a time where people really needed to hear that message. And it's just so much fun.
So where did the idea initially come from for the movie?
Yeah. Well, we were talking, my partners, John Graham and Andrea Polnazik, my sister, we were just, we're always sitting around talking about what matters to us or what's happened to us. And we got into talking about inheritance. And when we were talking to people, we kept hearing stories of people who said, oh, when my mother passed away, our whole family fought about the inheritance, and it can really rip people's families apart. And we just thought that would be a really fun way to talk about a really important message, and so we kind of talked about that. Also, I am the youngest of four, and everybody in the movie is kind of stems off my sisters and I family. So we were like, everyone in that is a sibling from our family. We tell real true stories that happened to our family when we were kids. So it really stemmed from wanting to speak into that the only thing we inherit on earth is the kingdom of heaven. And we like to take really meaningful stories, very deep questions, and put them into fun storylines. So you're having fun while you're watching it, but you're also getting a message of, wow, maybe we really hope that someone pick up the phone and call a family member that they haven't talked to in a while after watching the movie. Because of course the movie, all the siblings learn that family is more important than money, and that the only thing we inherit is Jesus.
So, if you could pick one message that you hope when people sit down to watch the movie, The Greatest Inheritance, what would that message be?
I would like them to know that kind of what I said, that that the only thing we inherit is the kingdom of heaven. And I think we tend to store up our treasures on earth. I think we are collectors, and especially in America. I'm on a cross country road trip, and we go from house to house, and we just see people have accumulated all this stuff, and this stuff doesn't matter, and this stuff doesn't come with us when we go. And the people that are in our lives matter more. And I'm a minimalist. I ended up, like I said, I've given up my home many, many times and put things in storage. And every time I do that, I realize that stuff doesn't matter. Experiences, our relationship with Jesus Christ, and the people in our lives are all that matter. And my sister has this great saying. Andrea is always saying, things are replaceable, but people are not. So if there's a car accident, as long as you're okay, the car is replaceable. And I think that, that is so important for people to take away from this movie, that, your relationship with your siblings, with your family, is so much more important than what you'll inherit from someone passing away.
So, what was it like working with Jaleel White on set, Urkel, as many would know on TV?
Oh my gosh. Well, first off, I grew up on Family Matters and Full House. So when we got to cast him, I don't really get starstruck. I've worked in Los Angeles for 25 years, but I was like, oh my gosh, we're going to work with Jaleel White. So it was definitely like amazing for me to get to work with him. And I was a little starstruck, but he was actually pure delight. He was so wonderful. He came in with such a great spirit. He loved the script. And actually, it was during COVID, so we were kind of having everyone locked down, not locked down, but like, don't go out and meet people because we need to keep you safe. But kids in the neighborhood found out that Jaleel was at our location, and they all came out. And I actually was there when the production assistant, came up to Jaleel and said, hey, Jaleel, I don't want to bother you, but there's some kids outside that would love to meet you. And Jaleel was so gracious. And he was like, you're never bothering me. I live for this. I love this. And he went out and he greeted all the kids in the neighborhood. He took photos with them. He signed autographs, and he gave his time to them. So he genuinely is such a great person who cares about his fans. At the end of filming, he actually had the whole cast and crew come out and have a conversation. And he said, this has been one of the kindest sets I've ever worked on. And he was so grateful. So he was a delight. He was funny too. Like, he's so funny. We always like, when we have comedians, we work with Bill Ingville, and when you have a comedian on your set who's so funny, we always say, do the line once the way we wrote it, and then go for it and do it your own way. And so he was able to do some improvising, and he had us all rolling on set laughing because he is hilarious.
That's great. So, I hear that you also have another movie that I would like to talk about called Identity Crisis, which you recently just released the novel on Amazon and different
Yay.
online distributors. Share with us a little bit about the story behind that one.
Yes, Identity Crisis is our newest movie. We actually just got on the Angel Studios platform, which we're excited for that. And it's about a shy science whiz in college who struggles with imposter syndrome and not thinking she's good enough. She's a super smart scientist. She's a freshman in college. And she's afraid. She's afraid to do anything. She's afraid to not be 100% right. So she doesn't put herself out there. And she figures out how to clone herself to create what she thinks is the perfect identity and send the clone off to do all the things she's afraid of. In the process, learning that God already created her the perfect version of herself and that He gave her all the courage. She just needed to try. And it's all about teaching people that our identity lies in Christ and that we are fearfully and wonderfully made, and God doesn't make mistakes. And so what a beautiful message to send out into the world, especially to young girls with so many conflicting things they're seeing on social media. We want them to know that their identity is rooted in Christ, that they were created on purpose. Everyone was created on purpose for a purpose, and that God has instilled that into you. So we thought that the cloning would be a really fun way to, how many times do we say, oh, I wish I was this way, or I wish I was like that. And like, what if you could? And then you find out maybe that isn't the best way to live. So that you have it all in you from God. So that's what that's about. And that movie we shot entirely on location at Grand Canyon University in Phoenix, Arizona. We partnered with the college and amazing support from the college. And that movie is doing so well. And I hope blessing everyone who watches it.
So I have to ask, in a society that we live in, such as we do right now,
yeah,
where did that perfect idea stem for that movie? And was it aimed at the generation of today?
You know what? What's so interesting, Andrew, is that, Andrew and I wrote this script a few years ago before identity became such a different conversation. When we first were writing it, we were really talking about confidence and like confidence is a mindset. And a lot of young girls will go to college and they'll fall behind the guys, not because they're not as smart, but because they don't have the confidence to try. So we were really coming from identity crisis, meaning you just don't know what you want to be when you grow up, or you're just not sure. And then we shoot the movie, and the movie came out at a time where identity's conversation, the landscape was very different. So we just believe that God lays things on our hearts and He has the perfect timing. And we were like, okay, we weren't really thinking that when we wrote it, but it's a great time to put out a message where there is so much confusion about identity being pushed onto our young children, that we were putting out a message that says, you are loved, and you are loved by a creator who created you and does not make mistakes.
So if you had to pick one of your movies that you've had a very memorable moment on set, which one would you say that would come to your attention?
Oh, I would say, okay, on The Greatest Inheritance, we were shooting in Georgia during the summer where there's a lot of storms and it keeps raining. And a lot of the movie takes place outside because it's a scavenger hunt. The kids are trying to find the deed. And we had this one scene that's at the end of the movie where Jaleel White actually reads the letter from the mother. And it's a very important scene. And it's a very poignant part of the story. And every time we went to do the scene, it rained on us and it lightning. And when you're filming a movie, if lightning strikes within a certain distance from your film set, you have an automatic 30-minute shutdown. So if lightning strikes, everyone has to stop, nobody can work, and we have to wait 30 minutes. And this kept happening. And we kept bumping the scene and pushing the scene. And we get to the last day with Jaleel White, Andrew. The last day. And we keep hearing that it's lightning and raining around us. And we're like praying. We have like prayer warriors because we're shooting the scene and we're checking the weather map and we're trying to get the scene in. And we finally finish the scene. We get the scene wrapped. The second we yell cut, it starts to rain. And I go inside, and the woman in the house who owned the house pulled out her phone and she said, look at this. There is a circle around my property where there has been no rain and no lightning, but it is raining all over the neighborhood. And she goes, God has literally, my neighbors are calling saying, we see that it's not raining on your property. That is a miracle. But God held the rain, and we got to shoot that scene. And then Jaleel White was on an airplane and leaving. So if we didn't get that scene, we weren't going to ever get it. And God protected our set. So we have a lot of miracle stories like that. But that's one of my favorites because it's unbelievable that everywhere around was raining and lightning, but the circle around us.
That's awesome. So, what's coming up for you? Any new movies you're working on?
Yes, we are. Well, so we are working on a few movies. We're really into some of our mission is teens and technology and addressing technology for teens and for parents. So we have a new movie that we're working on called Technology Tripping about a teen girl who's addicted to her devices, and she gets in a text related car accident, and she's actually court ordered on a technology free road trip with her grandmother who is her guardian. And we explore how kids, we have replaced playtime with screen time. So if you take a kid out to play, they almost don't know how to do it. And so the movie kind of talks about how important it is to take the phone, not take the phones away forever, but put them away so we can look up, experience the person across from us, and experience the world around us. And it's a really fun movie in a road trip. And so we have that. And then we have a couple other projects we're working on, and just trying to get another movie off the ground. Yeah.
So, what really drives a message home for you to want to produce a movie about it?
Oh, that's a great question. I really care about the youth. I care about the young generation. We're living in the most illiterate time for young people in the Bible. So I am driven to create stories that have kids lean in and not lean out. We don't tell sermons. We create stories. And within that story, we hope to point them to the Bible, that God has incredible, amazing messages in the Bible that are fun and incredible. And so our movies are hopefully a way for someone to hear something and go, "Oh, I didn't know the Bible had stories like that," or "I didn't know that I was fearfully and wonderfully made." When we wrote Identity Crisis, we don't write Bible verses into the movies. We just speak Bible verses out loud. God says, "When my word goes out, it does not come back void." So we just speak it out. And sometimes people who are not believers won't know that it's a Bible verse, but they'll come to us. Like on Identity Crisis, we have people come to us and say, "You wrote the most beautiful line that we're fearfully and wonderfully made." And we're like, "We didn't write that. We plagiarized that from the Bible." So I think my passion is that drives me is to create things that makes people have a closer relationship with God, and that we do it in a way that makes them excited about it. And not, I grew up as a minister's kid. So I was like, I don't want to go to church. I don't want to go to youth group. I don't want to do all that. But if there had been entertainment that helping me be like, well, that's actually really cool. So that's where, I also just want to make really fun Disney movies for Christians that have lighthearted, delightful stories, but also makes people feel like they walk away loved, and they walk away with a nugget on how to live life just a little bit better, and how their walk with Jesus could be stronger, and that Jesus is awesome and he's amazing. And that's my passion. And we really also want to help parents start conversations with their kids. I mean, entertainment is an incredible way for a parent to show a movie to their kid and maybe drum up a conversation that they would never have had, but the movie gives them permission to talk about something. And all of our movies have themes that we that help equip parents to talk about what does it look like to live out the theme of this movie.
So, at what point in your life did Jesus become real to you? I know you grew up in a pastor's home, but at what point did it really become real and about a relationship to you?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I grew up and I never rebelled. I never did. My parents were really good parents. They were great I came from a great pastor's home, because I know minister kids can rebel, and I didn't ever. My father was very good at balancing how much he wanted us to know Jesus as opposed to it being my parents' faith. But I will say, when I moved to Los Angeles, I was only 19 years old. I went all by myself to this from Boston to LA, as a child. And I think that moving out there and being on my own, I spent time searching to know God myself. And I also spent a lot of time thinking about the things that I felt like were my parents' faith, as opposed to, okay, now it needs to be my faith and my relationship with God. So I think moving to LA, I had some really rough things happen in my first few years in Los Angeles, and it really drew me closer to God. I had an incident where I think I could have been very, very hurt. And I had an audible voice tell me to walk away before I went into a situation. And I know that God saved my life. And I know God spoke to me. And I was about to walk into something that probably would have maybe ruined my whole entire life. And there was an audible voice that says, get back in your car and leave. And I did. And I, to this day, and he also revealed to me what would have happened about 6 months later had I gone into that situation. So I feel like that was like, wow, okay, God loves me. God has a plan for my life, and he's with me and he's protecting me. And I want to seek him and know him.
So, at what point in your career did you choose to be a part of the faith movie industry? Like you were in Los Angeles, you had opportunities all around you to be in all kind of TV series and movie, I'm sure. But what really drew you to the faith industry?
Yeah, well, when I got an opportunity, I had worked on a lot of thrillers and horrors, and I was talking to my sales agent for one of my movies, and he actually said to me, "I think you should be making faith-based family movies." And I really believe like God struck the table and was like, I'm calling you into this space, and I'm calling you to do this. And will you accept my call? And will you be fearless in LA? Some people knew I was a Christian. Some people didn't know I was a Christian. I was part of Women in Film and lots of organizations. And if someone asked me, I would tell them that I love Jesus, but I wasn't out there saying it everywhere I went. Well, when you go into faith-based family movies, everyone knows you're a believer. So it was like, and I took the calling, and I was like, whether or not I lose friends or people don't like that I'm doing this, I don't care. This is obviously what God wants for my life. And after 10 years of struggling so hard in the industry, when I was seeking the kingdom of heaven, seeking God's will on my life, and doing what he asked me to do, it was like all the floodgates opened. So to me, it was like, wow, I've been hitting all these brick walls. And then when God calls me to do it, I went, he opened all the doors. So that's how I knew I was in the will of the Lord, and I was doing what he wanted me to do. And once you're in the will of God and you're doing what he wants and you see his hand in everything, you never go back. Let me tell you.
Well, Alexandra, it's been an honor talking to you. Thank you so much for being a part of Faith Chats. I have enjoyed the conversation. I encourage folks to go check out your website, the Boylan Sisters. They can find out more about your movies that are available on Tubi, and I just encourage them to go watch it and be blessed by it.
Be blessed. Thank you, Andrew. Thank you for having me.
All right, you be blessed.
You too. Bye.
All right, bye.